On the campaign trail today, the Liberals made promises about investing money to help seniors.
We're there for seniors. We're there to deal with issues like housing and affordability.
I'm Heather Gillis, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
We absolutely are calling on you today, whether you're a premier or not.
A PC announcement to bring more industrial jobs back to the province shifted focus after a concerned citizen spoke up. And we'll take a closer look at the candidates running to be the new voice in Labrador West.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with the provincial election campaign. Today, the PC party continued campaigning on the Burin Peninsula and focused on support for industry and workers. But the local candidate also faced some unrelated and uncomfortable questions. Here and Now's Henrika Wilhelm explains.
Another day, another stop for Tony Wakeham, this time at this former offshore factory in Marystown. But the announcement that was meant to be good news for workers in the province was derailed.
We absolutely are calling on you today, whether you're a premier or not.
When this resident took to the microphone to confront Wakeham about workers' exposure to carcinogens at the nearby shipyard and whether he'll support them.
I look forward to having further discussions and do a further investigation when I become Premier Newfoundland and Labrador.
But it was the hot mic moment that followed that put the local PC candidate and incumbent MHA in hot water.
Thank you. Good answers. I didn't know Bernadine was going to do that for me. Yeah. She just shot herself before.
A comment Dwyer tried to downplay when confronted by reporters.
No, it's not that she shot herself in the foot. I just thought that the way it looked was that to take over the mic, I guess, in that kind of way, when there's an announcement or anything like that, is, like I said before, I bring integrity and respect to the table. I'll sit at any boardroom or any table that anybody else is bringing that same integrity and respect.
While that interruption put the spotlight on this former shipyard for a different reason, the PCs had come here to present their plan to revitalize industry in the area.
We will bring work back to our trades workers, prosperity back to the Burin Peninsula.
And so it was here where the PCs chose to make that promise, where a once bustling parking lot is reclaimed by nature. A great place to work, but work hasn't been done here in a while. Rick Farrell worked here for more than 30 years.
Oh, it was amazing. You had 800 workers with a great paycheck, safe working conditions. They were putting the money back into the Burin Peninsula economy, and things were moving.
Today, Wakeham said he would also mandate any public infrastructure project over $500,000 to employ at least 10% apprentices and have new ferries built in this province.
We would like to have more work come back to the areas. Young people were here. They're moving away now in droves, whatever, and it's hard to build your community with no young people here working and no families.
Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, Marystown.
Well, the NDP says it has a plan to lower the cost of living and reduce taxes without cutting services. Several provincial party candidates joined leader Jim Dinn for the announcement this morning.
We are here to make a promise to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that we're not going to raise taxes. This is a plan that does not involve raising taxes for the people of the province. And we're not about to cut services. In fact, in many ways, we'll be reducing taxes, like cutting the HST of all home heating and children's essentials like clothing and shoes, and expanding services like investing in our health care system and expanding $10 a day childcare. So why can't we do it? We can do that because we've made practical, responsible, and costed choices. And I've said this before, and I'll keep on saying, it's about priorities. And we're prioritizing you, we're prioritizing the families of our candidates, we're prioritizing the families of your neighbors, we're prioritizing your family.
What we're hearing too, it's people are feeling squeezed, right? They're feeling if it's not the light bill, it's the groceries. If it's not the groceries, it's the rent, right? And like as a social worker, that's kind of how I got involved here, was because I was working at a nonprofit and I could see that one policy change, I could snap my fingers and do it, it would help probably 5,000 people. and then trying to go to government, trying to go to ministers for that policy change, trying to advocate, not getting that response. That's exactly how I ended up here. So I'm thrilled with this announcement, and I'm so excited for our platform to be announced tomorrow.
Still on the campaign trail, the Liberals are promising affordability measures for seniors and a new oversight body to monitor and license personal care homes. Heather Gillis has more.
Stanley Bennett has been stocking the shelves at this Stephenville Crossing grocery store for decades. He sees the cost of living crisis firsthand. Prices go up, people find it harder to get by. Bennett thinks politicians, like Liberal leader John Hogan, who visited Thursday, should make life more affordable.
People can't afford the grocery, they can't afford to rent, they can't afford to buy homes no more, you know. It's a doggy world around, right?
Bennett's colleague in the meat department says too often people have to put food back on the shelves.
Some people look at it like, for example, chickens, $20 for a chicken, no, can't afford it, put it back.
Thursday, Hogan announced targeted affordability support for seniors. He promised to give the seniors benefit to 10% more people, announced traveling senior navigator teams to help people with applications and red tape to make sure they get all the benefits they qualify for. And he also swore to double grants for aging at home and caregivers up to $800.
Not unlike, families, affordability is a big issue for them. And they don't really have many options now. They've retired from their jobs. A lot of them in long-term care homes, a lot of them in facilities where they don't have the ability to have access to increased money. So we need to be there for them.
Today, Hogan also promised an independent body to monitor and license long-term and personal care homes. He says if re-elected, they'll start on that initiative immediately. The promise comes after a scathing Auditor General report on personal care homes earlier this year. It said there were preventable deaths, wrong medications given, and deplorable conditions in some homes.
So I think we will work with the seniors advocate, make sure that it's there, make sure the standards are there, make sure that people are following the standards and nothing falls through the cracks. We've certainly heard some issues in that long-term care report. Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves those issues. Nobody deserves a lack of or lower quality of care, especially not our seniors.
Hogan says initiatives in today's announcement will cost $13 million and will be paid for from revenue from the new Churchill Falls Agreement. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Stephenville Crossing.
Now to Labrador. With no incumbent in the running, Labrador West will have a new MHA after October 14th, and that means a new voice will represent the mining region. Here Now's Daryl Din brings us more.
Labrador West is one of the province's economic drivers, thanks to the iron ore industry, and the riding has been held by the NDP for the last 6 years, only one of 2 seats the party holds in the province. MHA Jordan Brown announced he would not be running again. So when this election is over, a new voice will represent the riding, which includes Labrador City and Wabash. The question is, who? Hoping to keep the seat in the orange column is Shazia Razi, a Wabash Town councillor and staff member at the Association of New Canadians. For the Liberals is Todd Seward, a businessman who owns the local bakery among other businesses. And for the Progressive Conservatives, former Labrador City Fire Chief Joe Power. What drew each of these candidates to their respective parties?
The only reason I chose NDP is because I have an education in political science. So I did my bachelor's in political science and economics. And then, so I have an idea of all the 3 parties and the platforms. And right now, I feel that NDP is the only party that's connected to the people.
It's time for change. And I believe in what the PC party is. I believe in their approach and their policies.
Just talking to friends and seeing how much our community needs, and I really think that a strong voice can help those issues along.
As they go door to door, the concerns they're hearing from residents have a few common threads.
Most of the concerns you're hearing in Labrador West is it's time for change, and a lot of people here in Labrador West feel that there's a lot of taxes, a lot of revenues going out of here, and we're not getting back what we should be getting back.
Seniors housing seems to be front and center. High cost of living here is another one. Cost of everything really, I guess, has risen in our communities. And when you become a fly-in, fly-out community and you lose all your services, then people have monopolies and the prices go up.
I've been hearing MTAP is a huge issue. Fly in, fly out is another big issue here. Housing is another big issue. Hospital. So the lack of doctors here.
Why do they want to represent Labrador West?
I am a strong voice. I don't take no for an answer. And I know I will get stuff done for our town.
I'm compassionate about Labrador West and the people here. A lot of people look at Labrador West as a mining town. We are a mining town, that's why we're here. We're all here to work, but we're also a community.
I want to make sure that we have a better community. I have a better place to retire, and my children have a better place to live.
With a seat up for grabs for one of these three new candidates, the question will be, who do voters believe can deliver the solutions they need for Labrador West on October 14th? Daryl Dinn, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
State of emergency has been declared in Hughes Brook due to a water shortage. The town made the announcement on Facebook today. The post says everyone in the town is ordered to conserve water, to only use it for essential needs like drinking, cooking, and hygiene. As well, the town is shutting off water between 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. to slow water loss. The measures are in place because of extremely low water levels in the dam and a lack of rain. And still with municipal news, residents living in unincorporated towns in Conception Bay North packed a local hall last night, hoping to figure out how to move forward and represent themselves after wildfires devastated the region this summer. Here now, Zach Gowdy reports.
The next government has to come out and recognize what happened here, recognize this disaster. Like everything burnt, and that's not coming back. And I have people say, oh, that's going to grow back. But you don't grow back schools. You don't grow back businesses. You don't grow back houses. It's not going to come back unless the government helps us.
A high-stakes meeting was held in Burnt Point for people who live in the unincorporated areas of Conception Bay North. That includes several communities that were devastated in this summer's wildfire, like Kingston, Ochre Pit Cove, Western Bay, and Northern Bay. Organizers say the lack of town councils and other regional structures has made the fire response harder in these communities, in everything from sharing information to coordinating with the provincial government. About 100 people packed into the meeting hall. Organizer Stella Johnson lost her own home in the fire, but says many people came to the meeting in far worse situations.
My house is burnt to the ground, but their stories will be a lot sadder because they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to live. They're probably living in a hotel in Bay Roberts somewhere still. Where are they going this winter? Like, they don't know. And there's no one is trying to help them.
There was a lot on the agenda at this meeting. Johnson says it was the first chance that people in these unincorporated communities have had to gather and share their stories and trauma with each other. But it was also about creating an action plan for rebuilding. The first step was forming a regional committee that can represent the unincorporated communities in dealings with government and in coordinating the response with residents. Tammy and James Beam own Salty Seas Cottages in Ochre Pit Cove. Their business was nearly wiped out by the fire. They lost 9 cottages, a storage shed full of equipment, their craft store, and a 100-year-old home on their property. The Beams say that working together is the only way for their communities to move forward.
We need to coordinate. I mean, right now everybody is dealing with individual loss and the frustrations of insurance companies and the waiting and the lack of contractors. And I think if we come together and form a group, then we can move forward and maybe organize better so that all the information is coming out to one group instead of having to look over here and trying to piece everything together.
Folks emerged from this meeting with a 4-person committee in place. Also in attendance were several politicians running to be the area's next MHA. Whoever is elected, helping the unincorporated communities of Conception Bay North recover will be an issue on day 1. Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the race for the mayor's chair in the city of St. John's.
Well, temperatures today well above where we should be sitting for most areas, especially up across Labrador, nearly 10 degrees warmer in Happy Valley Goose Bay than it should be. As we head through the next couple of days, we have some rain on the way, and that is going to bring some windy conditions as well for parts of the province. And then the weekend looks a little quieter, but it looks a little cooler. I'll break it all down for you coming up a little later.
A Twillingate man is facing numerous charges related to online child exploitation. The RCMP and RNC searched a Twillingate home in April and seized electronic devices from the home. And a week ago, they arrested a 29-year-old following an investigation of those devices. He's now facing 4 charges related to child pornography and 5 counts of luring a child under the age of 18. The man was released from custody on conditions and is scheduled to appear in court in November. Residents of St. John's will vote for the city's next mayor next week on October 2nd. The CBC's Julia Israel spoke with the 2 candidates about their vision for the city.
This year, voters have 2 options for the next mayor of St. John's. Ivy Hanley is a multi-business owner in the city of St. John's, a previous tradeswoman and a mother. This is her first time entering politics.
I've broken barriers when it comes to women in trade, as well as being able to open businesses when others have said you cannot. And I continue that style of my life, and that's one of the many reasons I want to run for mayor of St. John's.
Current St. John's Mayor Danny Breen is up for re-election. In the last 8 years, he has seen the city improve public infrastructure, host the Canada Games, and grow local businesses.
The mayor has no special authority. The mayor has 1 vote, just like the rest of council. But what the mayor does do is lead a council, lead with experience and with leadership capabilities that have been proven.
Both candidates stress the issue of public safety and the threat of a growing drug crisis.
When our province pumped $1 million of drug paraphernalia into our city, they didn't have an exit plan to that. What I'm upset about is you can't give someone a weapon without giving them some tools to get better, or, taking the weapon back immediately when they're done with it. Those weapons are now across our city. So I will be demanding from our provincial government to put the supports in place and to clean up the needles, because they provided them, not us. We've got to get a shelter system that is drug-free in this city. I know it's provincial, but our city is crumbling without it, and I will be fighting for a drug-free shelter in our city, and I will be fighting with the province.
Breen says there are multiple factors at play in this crisis.
The courts and the police just don't seem to have the necessary resources to deal with it. We have a penitentiary that's being replaced, long overdue being replaced, and I think we're seeing the impact of that lack of services to help get back into the community. We're discharging people from the penitentiary into homelessness. Part of harm reduction is building that trust with people, and building trust with people have those addictions, so that when they reach the point where they are ready to quit, that there's help there for them to do that.
Another pressing concern is economic development. Hanley wants to attract new businesses in retail, housing, and with companies from away.
We need flexibility in our system because businesses can't open here. They're really struggling. I mean, I deal with vendors almost every day, and hearing from them the reasons they don't want to open in St. John's breaks my heart. It's too expensive. The permitting system is hard to follow. It's not clear. The requirements in a lot of the older buildings are something that the average person cannot afford.
Hanley herself ran into struggles in a 3-year legal battle with the city over an occupancy permit for her seasonal store, Christmas House. The charge was dropped in this year.
I've experienced there's a disconnect between residents, business owners, and the city of St. John's. I was there, I experienced it, and I want to change it. I don't want anyone else to have to go through what I did when I opened my business.
As for Breen's goals, he's proposing that the city get a cut of the provincial HST tax, relieving pressure on property tax.
Cost of everything is going up, and we're an end user as a municipality. So as those costs go up, the cost pressures on the cities and municipalities increase. So we need a way to lessen that impact on the taxpayer.
Voting day is October 2nd. Julia Israel, CBC News, St. John's.
News.
Ashley, a gorgeous day out there. I didn't even need a coat. Which is not bad for this time of year.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely beautiful out there this afternoon. Plenty of sunshine thanks to a nice big ridge of high pressure. But things are going to change as we head through tomorrow. We've got a couple of areas of low pressure. Both of them are to our west, but one to the north and one to the south. And that is going to bring some periods of rain along with some windy conditions to pretty much all of the province as we head through tomorrow. But tonight we're still in for a fairly quiet night. Temperatures are absolutely beautiful still out there. 20 degrees right now in Happy Valley Goose Bay, still 21 in Mary's Harbour, and tied there with Terra Nova at the moment. St. John's right now sitting at 17 degrees, but we've got this definitely warm flow, and the southerly flow is going to continue as we head through tomorrow. But for now, dealing with plenty of sunshine up across Labrador, a little bit of cloud cover, but we will see the clouds move in as we head through the early morning hours. But I want to zoom out a little bit and move down to the tropics because things are really starting to heat up. A couple of systems at play right now. We've got Humberto, trying to remember the names of these hurricanes, but this one now is a tropical storm. We've got that system, and then we've got this one, which is now called Invest 94, but will likely become Imelda is what that name is going to be. And this system is potentially going to, at least the Hurricane Center is saying, should become a hurricane as we head through the next 48 hours rather. It's got a 70% chance and then 90% chance over the next 7 days. What is interesting about this is if you take a look at Humberto, currently a tropical storm gusting upwards of about 110 kilometers per hour. That track is expected to head to the west and then eventually head north. But it's going to become a major hurricane. At least it's forecasted to become a major hurricane. So I've added the other tracks on there, as you can see in the different colors. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see as of now, the track of this system is well to the south of any interests in Atlantic Canada. But the key is going to be over the next, once the other system develops, is look how close these two systems are. So it depends on how they interact over the next couple of days. So all that to say that I will certainly be keeping my eye on the tropics as we head through at least the next week or so. If there are anything that we need to talk about, I will certainly keep you posted. For now, we do have some weather to talk about. As we head through tonight and into tomorrow, we are going to start to see some of that cloud cover move in along with some shower activity by the time we get into tomorrow morning for Lab West and then eventually the southwestern coast of the island. So temperatures tonight are going to stay relatively mild, especially compared to last night. We're looking at overnight lows between 8 to 11 degrees, coolest about single digits, mid-single digits for the north coast. And then as we head into tomorrow, I have those winds on there for you because things really going to ramp up as we head into tomorrow morning, especially for the southwest coast. You're looking at your winds gusting as high as 100 kilometers per hour in the Wreck House area. And then we'll see that rain arrive along with winds gusting out of the south or southwest somewhere between 50 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour. And then into the evening hours, we could see some wind gusts as high as 80 or more, especially in exposed areas along the northeast coast. So that rain will move through. And then in behind that, the winds will eventually ease. As far as the rainfall amounts go, mainly south, that's where we'll see the most rain, but we could be talking about 10 to 20 millimeters. We certainly need it. Certainly could use a little bit more than that as well. But taking a look at your daytime highs tomorrow, into the teens for the most part. Same thing for Labrador. Big cool down coming though for the rest of the weekend. I'll break that down for you coming up a little later.
Well, it's a tale as old as time. Politicians making spending promises to get elected.
Well, we're in the thick of it right now with the provincial election looming, but in a province with a rising deficit, the second highest spending per capita in the country, over $17 billion in debt, can we really afford to spend more? And if not, where would the money come from to fulfill some of these campaign promises? MUN economics professor Lynn Gambin joins me now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So as someone who knows all about balancing the books and bottom lines, what do you think about when you hear the politicians on the campaign trail making all of these expensive promises?
Sometimes the expense isn't clear in the statements that come out. Some things for the party that's currently in government, some of what they're announcing is not entirely new. For others, they're saying that they'll be able to make it up in cuts, not cuts necessarily, but in saved spending costs in other areas in the budget. But the detail is not there in announcements, and it's difficult to put it all together to see what the bottom line will look like.
It is very difficult for sure. The Liberals and the Progressive Conservatives, they've been rolling out some really big spending promises during this campaign. The PCs in particular are promising over $200 million in new spending at last count. Things like new MRI machines, a tuition refund program, 24-hour emergency room in Botwood, and that $200 million doesn't include 4 new ferries that they're promising, and also a 24-hour medical air transportation service out of Gander. So the PCs haven't said how much, a lot of that will cost, and what should voters make of these big spending promises in light of the province's fiscal situation?
I think there's a few things to remember. It's important that government spend money because they provide programs and services that are really essential to life in Newfoundland and Labrador. Some services are more important in certain centres, some are more important in rural or remote parts of the province. So spending is inevitable. It's where people have their priorities and where they want to see change that they have to think about, because where the money goes is where the priorities are. I think there's also a need to remember that these are not typically one-time spends. Every time new equipment, new diagnostics, things like that come on to our systems, we have to have the human resources there to use them, to make them efficient, and get the services delivered to people with the outcomes we want. So in terms of healthcare spending, for instance, the Health Accord outlines a number of wide sweeping changes to the healthcare system. So where announcements from all of the parties come from in terms of healthcare, it's a good idea to think about how that fits into the long-term vision of the Health Accord. There's also the need to think about where, if there is going to be potential savings elsewhere, where are those coming from? And it's not just spending, it's also things like tax cuts. That's essentially the same as a spend, because it changes your bottom line again. Because if you give tax cuts of any sort, you've reduced the revenue that's there for the budget to operate anyway. So people need to think about, what are your priorities? What's the long-term impacts? What's the immediate impacts? And sometimes it's hard to see beyond the short term.
Yeah, so something needs to give, and you kind of touched on this. If parties are promising to spend more, where does that money come from?
There's various places. One of the things that came out in a number of the announcements is about addressing nursing shortages, for instance. And yes, trying to find efficiencies there, trying to secure recruitment, but also retain staff. That's usually much more cost effective than continual renewal of the workforce and continual cycles of recruitment. So retention is an important part. Will the savings be big enough to fund everything on that? Not likely. So it's very unlikely to find all of the savings in the existing budget to make up for new spending.
Progressive Conservative leader Tony Wakeham in particular has been asked many times on the campaign trail, how are you going to pay for all of these promises? And he said a few times that he's not really worried about balancing the budget right now, which seems kind of striking coming from a conservative. Do you think that fiscal conservatism is dead in this province?
I think it's a reality, really. I think it's about servicing a population that's had issues with population decline. We have an aging demographic. We have higher and higher demands on our healthcare services, on our education system, things like that. So costs are always going up. So having spending is inevitable. it's about being responsible, also about looking at the things where we'll likely get a return in better outcomes, say in health or education down the road, and where we'll maybe, if there's investment in infrastructure, if that leads to growth down the road. Those are also things to think about.
The NDP has said that it plans to release a fully costed platform, which is kind of unusual for the NDP in particular. How much weight do you put into a costed platform?
I think it would be great if you knew the assumptions that go behind it, if you're able to compare the scale of different platforms across the different parties. That would be a helpful piece of information. You always need to take things with a critical eye, though, to see what's missing, what assumptions have been made, and how likely those assumptions are to hold in real life.
And we know that the province has a big spending problem, and you know, the Liberals have been at the helm for the past 10 years. Do you have any advice for voters who are looking at all of the parties? They're worried about the province's financial situation. They want to vote for someone who's going to help fix it. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to make that choice?
I think it's a difficult thing. I can't advise who to vote for, but I can say get as much information as you need to make as fully an informed decision as you can. Ask questions. Don't take everything on face value. Think about the implications of a spending increase in one area or a cut in somewhere else, what that might do to the services that you are using or that you know other people in the province really need and require on a day-to-day basis.
All right, some great advice there, Lynn Gambin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
An attempt to conduct Canada's first commercial rocket launch in this province has been put on hold. Nord Space is a startup that's been trying to launch a rocket from St. Lawrence. Peter Cowan explains why the company is stopping its attempts for now.
Nord Space won't be able to try to launch their rocket again in St. Lawrence this week. 2 days this week, they tried to launch and they had the same problem. Extra jet fuel that ignited on the launch pad. The company now thinks they know what caused the issue. The fuel they tested at their facility in Ontario is slightly different than the fuel they're using in Newfoundland. The rocket and launch pad are okay. They had a few more days left in their launch window, but they need to make changes to the rocket, not something they can do on the ground in Newfoundland. The company says they'll announce a new launch date in the coming weeks. This is already the second launch window for the company. They tried to launch the rocket back in August. The 3-year-old company aims to be the first commercial rocket launch in Canada. Right now, Canadian companies have to go to the US or other countries in order to launch satellites into space. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, after a hot, dry summer, farmers in this province are dealing with a hay shortage. The situation is so dire, it may mean some farmers will have to give up some of their animals to get by.
Hi, my name is Andrew Turner, owner of Humber Valley Holsteins. There's a severe shortage, more severe the further east you go. It's been such a dry summer, and without precipitation, plants just don't want to grow. We've lucked out okay in comparison to the rest of the province because we're located in the valley, so any kind of precipitation flowing through the area tends to fall in this low areas. But it's still, we're probably 70-75% of where we should have been. Each year tends to get a little more hotter, a little bit drier, but typically as far as our forage goes, it's always remained the same, but this year has been particularly different. Every farmer on Newfoundland, well, not even just Newfoundland, in Atlantic Canada, our numbers are down, so any kind of surplus that we had from the year before, we're kind of holding on to. We don't know what next year is going to bring. Next year could be the same as this year, so we need to have a little bit of an overflow to ensure that we have enough forage to feed our livestock. But it's a sad reality for a lot of people that, well, if they don't have to feed to feed their animals, then they'll have no other choice but to let some of them go, ship them, do whatever they have to do. But we're hoping that there'll be some sort of subsidy or government funding or some help from the government to either cut back on fuel costs for transportation or even Marine Atlantic to cut back on the cost for shipping from Marine Atlantic to come over, or help out with the cost of forage because it's supply and demand. So demand is high and supply is low, the price of it's going to increase. So there's a lot of farmers who aren't going to be able to fare out as well.
Well, here's an interesting piece of news from the arts. The musical Come From Away is the most staged show in the United States this year. That's according to American Theatre magazine. It says the musical about people stranded in Gander during 9/11 is taking on a new meaning in the Trump era.
We tallied that there'll be 23 productions of Come From Away all across the U.S. And so this number is probably much higher, probably as many as 3 or 4 times higher than that if you looked at student and community productions. It's in 17 different states, and it's everything from the large theaters, like the largest theaters like the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, to small theaters in upstate New York and California, North Carolina, South Carolina. It's all different sizes, and that you're probably going to wonder why this play now. Business reason is that it's toured everywhere, as you might know, all over the world. A lot of the same states it's now going to be playing, but Musical Theatre International, which gives it licensing rights to the play, just made it available in the past year. So I think there was a lot of pent-up demand. Now theaters can stage their own versions, their own productions. It's not the one that's going around on tour, but it really is a story about people coming together and dealing with a traumatic event at some remove from the event itself, but in their own sort of stress and trauma coming together. I think without even talking about our current moment, that seems to resonate with people about, can we have something where people come together as opposed to being divided? It's going to play in 17 states across the U.S., red and blue states alike. It's interesting to recall a moment of great trauma in our country and the world, but to have it be told in a way that talks about a coming together of just an emergency moment. I think a lot of folks they see the emergency that we're facing with our administration and the world. I think as it also resonates anew after COVID and after the polarization that really was supercharged by our isolation and some of the politics around that.
You can hear more of that interview by tuning into CBC Radio's Weekend AM on Saturday morning. The federal government is recommending major changes for Canada Post. Ottawa says the Crown Corporation needs to transform to achieve financial stability and ensure its survival.
There are choices that we need to make as a government, and the path forward, if we're not doing anything, is $10 million in losses every day. It's billions in repeated bailouts year after year, and that means cuts to some services.
New measures could mean allowing Canada Post to end home delivery and close some rural offices. Non-urgent mail will be allowed to move by ground instead of by air, a cost saving of $20 million annually. Canada Post says it welcomes the move to better serve Canadians. Contract discussions between the union and the corporation remain stalled. And just days after meeting with world leaders at the United Nations, Mark Carney is headed to London for talks with several of his counterparts from Europe and Australia as part of a mission to boost Canada's trade partnerships. The CBC's Catherine Cullen is traveling with the Prime Minister, and she brings us more on what Carney is looking to achieve on this trip.
This trip is the latest salvo in Mark Carney's battle to shake up Canada's trading relationships. One of his big pitches in the last election campaign is to build more trade connections with other like-minded countries. And even in the past few weeks, we've seen him out on the road, getting on that plane, having some of these conversations aimed at that. He went to Mexico City to meet with the president of Mexico as the CUSMA renewal process conversation about free trade is set to step up. Just earlier this week, he was at the United Nations General Assembly, where there was a lot of focus on Canada's stance on Palestinian statehood, recognizing a state of Palestine, meeting with other world leaders there as well. And now he's headed to the UK. A cornerstone of this visit will certainly be his meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer, but there are other international leaders that will also be in town that Carney intends to meet with. The leaders of Australia, Spain, Iceland, and Denmark. Carney will be attending the Global Progress Action Summit, a gathering of progressive leaders. He'll also be meeting with business leaders while he is on this UK trip. Again, the stated aim to indulging in photo ops, that he hasn't been getting results despite the fact that he's been meeting with all of these leaders. Conservative MP Pierre Paulus has even said that the Prime Minister is hiding from question period, and certainly he is facing some political pressure there right now over comments made by his public safety minister about the gun buyback program. Now, the Prime Minister's office has said that this trip is about diversifying Canada's partnerships, creating a web of strong global connections, emphasizing that this is part of the economic vision that the Prime Minister has, as well as security issues. But it does speak to a balance Mark Carney is trying to strike. These international trips are supposed to help domestically with Canada's economy. The Conservatives continue to apply pressure around issues like crime and immigration. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, the Guinness Book of World Records is unveiling what it has in store for 2026, and it includes the world's tallest donkey.
Derek is the tallest donkey in the world at 167 centimetres or 5'5". Bamboo has really long ears, so you would expect him to have really good hearing. But in my opinion, sometimes I think he's deaf, or is it just to us?
Everything I looked at, I was wondering, can I turn that into a car? And then one day I'm standing in line in a gas station, and right next to me is a bowl of fruit, and on top was a banana exactly this shape.
Norbert set the Guinness World Record title by skateboarding 10 meters in 11.32 seconds. He'll do anything for a treat. He loves the camera, so anytime I'm filming something for his social media channels, he just needs to be right up in there and see what's going on.
Goodness.
I've seen it all.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about you, but everything I look at, I wonder how I can turn that into a car. How do I turn this camera into a car? Wild. Yeah.
That was incredible.
That donkey.
I was just going to say that. So tall.
Giant head, giant ears. Amazing.
Oh, boy.
Lots of interesting things in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to look at the long range, and you're keeping your eye on those 2 hurricanes?
Potentially. Yep. That's quite a bit out into the forecast. But yeah, we'll certainly talk about it. I'm really curious to see how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
And then where they end up at the end of the day. But yeah, let's talk about the long range forecast and what's going to happen until we get there. Let's take a look at our forecast for your Friday evening and into Saturday. That area of low pressure that is going to bring rain tomorrow, along with some windy conditions, will move through fairly quickly, but we've still got another area of low pressure to the north, and in behind this, much colder air, especially for those of you in Labrador. So there's the chance we could see some flurries in the mix here early Saturday morning. Slight chance, likely only on the north coast, but still, you're still looking at that chance. And the shower activity will continue into the afternoon as well. Now, across the island, most of us will be seeing a mix of sun and cloud, but there is a chance we'll see some showers as well through central, northern peninsula, and parts of the west coast. Very isolated in nature if they do develop, but that chance is still there. Overall, daytime highs will stay quite mild for central and east, so mid to upper teens through the day. A little colder, though, for those of you on the west coast, northern peninsula, about 11 or 12 degrees as your daytime highs. Then we get into the single digits. That will be the story for the north coast as well as Lab West. The rest of Labrador between 10 to 13 degrees as your daytime high on Saturday. Now, that area of low pressure will eventually depart, but we still have another system that's going to move in. So things will be a little bit unsettled through the weekend for those of you in Labrador. Across the island portion of the province, we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud, maybe a few afternoon showers on Sunday. I don't think it'll amount to much, but still the possibility for those of you on the west coast of the island. Then for Labrador, you'll see another round of showers Sunday and into Sunday evening. Overall, daytime highs will stay in the single digits for the coast of Labrador, 10 degrees pretty much everywhere else. And then across the island, you're looking at mid-teens through the day. The northern peninsula, a little cooler. You'll only be topping out around 10 or 11 degrees through the afternoon on Sunday. Long-range forecast showing temperatures cooling as we get into next week. So down to 13 or 14 degrees. Things look a little bit unsettled as we head into Tuesday for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. And then overnight lows will be sitting in the single digits. Now for central and western portions of the island, also looking at that cool down, 10 to 12 degrees by Tuesday, and overnight lows flirting with 2 to 4 degrees. So yes, it will start to feel chilly. Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures staying around 10 to 12 degrees, a little cooler for Lab West. And like I said, the potential for some snow, wet snow, flurries really, for those of you in Western Labrador late on Tuesday. Our weather photo of the day taken in St. Vincent's. Great shot there of the sunset. Thank you so much to Doreen for that photo. And if you have any weather photos you'd like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful shot, Doreen. Thank you so much for that. Love the lines.
Yes, ripple of the water.
Nicely composed. I don't know anything about photography. Anyways, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.